It is hard to extrapolate March to November, and we've had a couple of wacky cycles that surprise us, so you have to add all those caveats. However, if you look at the terrain, if you look at history, if you look at the president's approval rating, if you look at polling about the economy, right track, wrong track, approval rating or disapproval of Obamacare, especially where the key Senate races are, and if you look at what happened in the Florida 13 special election, forgive me, but you'd have to go to a bar at closing time to find a Democrat who thinks they're going to retake the House. You just would. If you look at history and you look at just look at the map where the somewhat competitive districts are, I find it almost impossible to see a scenario now that the Democrats retake the House. The Senate's a much more interesting battleground. A lot of people in Washington think, that Republicans will gain seats and just fall short. If you made me bet today, second week of March, I actually would say the Republicans will get it based on the data today, based on the president's approval rating, based on wrong track, based on how people feel about the economy. If the election were on St. Patrick's Day, I think Republicans would get the Senate. But if you look at it nationally, you'd be hard-pressed not to say that midterm elections are, by and large, a referendum on the president, and the 6-year midterm election for a 2-term presidency, they call it the 6-year itch, that election is when you tend to see big shifts. On average, the other party, the non-presidential party, picks up 30 House seats and gains in the Senate. I don't think the Republicans will get to 30 this year because there aren't that many competitive districts anymore, the way they draw the lines. But if you look at the map now, you would have to say it's a referendum on the president and his health care plan, and right now, the Republicans look to gain. Would a Republican Congress, would a fully Republican Congress end his presidency? Look at the Bill Clinton example. Would the president actually have more of a chance to do entitlement reform if he didn't have Democrats in the Senate and the majority saying we won't touch Medicare? So you could make an argument that on some issues, tax reform, entitlement reform, he's more likely to get things done. He'd have to compromise. He wouldn't get everything. He wouldn't get nearly everything he wants. But you could actually see an environment where, in the last couple of years, with the pressure of the end of his term, the pressure of trying to build a legacy, that on immigration reform, tax reform, and entitlement reform, the chances actually might be better if the other party controlled the Congress. That's not what the president wants. I'm not saying that, but you can see that scenario. I covered the Clinton White House in those days, and sometimes it's easier to get things done. I would look at the Colorado Senate race. It's suddenly competitive. It's a place where you have a guy from a political family, Senator Udall, who's a gentleman. He's also a nice guy. Yet he is pushing the president away right now. He actually likes the president. Why is he pushing him away? He's a smart guy. He knows something. In a state that has an Obama base, has a growing Latino population, has a young population, the suburbs around Denver, college-educated women, it's a great Obama state, and it was a good Obama state in 2 presidential elections. Why is he pushing him away? That tells me there's something in the water there. Let's see what happens and figure it out. North Carolina is another one, and potentially Louisiana. You have these candidates pushing the president away. Well, if Mary Landrieu and Kay Hagan can get really close at the end, if they're keeping it really close, the key to their victory is probably going to be whether African Americans vote. Who in the country can better turn out African Americans than Barack Obama? Well, our job's not to pick sides, but I think it is our job to help encourage interest in the national discourse. If you're a millennial, young voters tend not to play in midterm elections. Well, entitlement reform, immigration reform, jobs programs, college aid programs, I could go on and on and on. Subsets of almost every issue affect that generation. Why wouldn't they vote? There's a loyalty to Obama. That's one of the big questions, not only in this election, but what happens in 2016 to these young voters who grew of age, were 18 for the first time, for an Obama presidency. Are they Obama Democrats or are they Democrats? Were they just involved because of Obama, or will they not be involved at all? Rand Paul on the Republican side making a huge play for young people. So I think part of our job is to raise the issues, not just the personalities, and try to convince people they should play. A lot of people in a midterm year, it's harder because you've got to travel. Don't listen. If you see somebody in Washington telling you about the politics of the country, ask yourself this question: have I ever seen that person outside of Washington? Because no disrespect intended, but there are a lot of people in my business who never leave Washington, who tell you, here's what's happening in the country. They might know what's happening in Washington. Washington is not America. Washington doesn't have a car factory. Washington doesn't have, Washington has a very good economy. Its government and its defense and its technology, the unemployment rate's low, has some of the challenges like housing and everything else, but Washington is not Colorado, is not Louisiana, is not Arkansas, is not Alaska. And so the challenge in a midterm year is to get out and touch it and feel it.